Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah,
Welcome to the show.
We are. What's up, guys? Welcome to Worse. Wait. Welcome.
What?
Wait. Welcome to.
Oops.
Okay. What's up, guys? Welcome to Worse Reviews. You're watching the Much Worse podcast. I think that I forgot the intro. It's been a long time since I've made a video for this.
And we've got Old Head again. Yes. What do you know?
I'm here. I didn't mean to sabotage the opening, but you know,
no,
I'm used to constantly having to do openings on my podcasts, and we've been doing it for like almost 4 years. I'm still awful at it. I don't know what to say. It's weird. I should write something down, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. I think Ryan's more of a notes guy, and I'm kind of just more of like an on-the-fly person. Like, I don't know, like when I'm doing my content, but I need to write stuff down sometimes because I trip over everything.
But what we're doing is a Metallica ranking because we did the Beatles ranking, so I guess this could be sort of a companion to that and any other subsequent rankings that we're going to do. Because we got a lot planned, but we're very slowly doing them.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. It's because Metallica are the Beatles of metal, right? They're a highly influential, highly regarded band, and people hate the drummer.
Yeah, I mean, you have it there,
and they have a lot of footage and pictures of them.
Yeah,
yes,
like a lot
that they put on Google themselves, like. No, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So we're just gonna we limited it to just the studio albums. Metallica has a lot, but we just wanted to be. I mean, so unfortunately, that means Garage Inc. is not there, but studio albums.
And I'll do side notes because a side note for a few of them because I went and ranked a couple like extracurricular albums along the way.
Okay.
But
so wait. So we're coming. Are we all in agreement that it's 11 albums we're talking about here?
Yes, but I'll do a side note for any extra like ones that that Trav didn't do.
Yeah, I did not listen to anything else other than the studios.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
But
what
order do we want to list them in? Like you first. And then me, and then Old Head, or Old Head, you want to go in the middle, or?
I'll go with you. This is not my show. What the fuck is this?
That's why I'm asking Ryan. It's his channel.
I'll start since it's technically my channel, and then.
So do we want to like give some sort of insight? Like, why are you having me on this episode? What reason? What point is there?
Well, because Metallica is your favorite band, and
absolutely,
I'm a huge fan of you.
Oh, thanks, man.
I wanted to have you on. Like that was just the plan. I don't know.
That's all.
And then never Old Head again. We don't want him after the. No, I'm just kidding.
Really, like after 2 times, you kind of get everything. That
we obviously any other bands that like me and him like that we want to do in the future. I mean, it's like if you want to, but then you just got to do your homework.
But
I mean, I could have done the Beatles. That would have been fun.
Well, we didn't know you then.
I might have known you. Like how
I think Ryan had just started watching you. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
I found you through 30 years ago this month.
Okay.
January when you started. So last January.
Yeah.
So I was probably watching you a little bit. But
cool. Well, I decided just to preface it, like I've done a couple Metallica rankings in the past. I did one way back when I started my channel, and then I did another one with Eddie on Cranked and Ranked. But when you guys asked me to do this, I decided this was going to be the first ever time that I'm going to be 100% subjective in my ranking. This is the only factors I'm taking into consideration are how I feel. That's the right word, right? Subjective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally Old Head's personal, in his heart, ranking of the Metallica albums.
Oh, so it's different than ever. Maybe.
Well, I usually try to like put things into context of what the band did as a career and what was going on in music at the time, the production of an album, I don't know, all sorts of things. I really stress myself out over it most of the time, but I was like, I'm just gonna have a good time. What are my favorites? What order do I? If I'm gonna put one on, what's the order of me putting them on out of sheer enjoyment and just how I feel about them.
That's how I do rankings anyway, I guess.
Good. Well, cool. We're on the same page now.
So, I guess we can start. Well, another preface I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know Trav's opinion at all.
Yeah, we haven't
about Metallica at all.
Yeah,
which is crazy. Like
interesting.
Literally don't know anything.
We just naturally save our thoughts for.
Just like the Beatles, I didn't know his thoughts on the Beatles at all.
But it's hard to not talk about it because we talk like every day, so it's hard to not like. I want to tell you this thing, bro. Like I guess I'll insert this here. Like me and him did sit down and watch Some Kind of Monster. By the way,
nice.
So that was very interesting. Learned a lot about them as people. And I'll just say this: it's probably one of the best documentaries I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, I love
it.
It's ridiculously enjoyable. Like it's like absolutely rewatchable, quotable. It's fucking great.
Yeah, it was interesting, and like honestly, like when stuff goes down in the movie, like they get into arguments and stuff, like me and him, like I don't know, we were just dying honestly, like because like. Just even though it's very serious, but it was funny. It was so funny. It was so ridiculously funny. But had a lot of heart, and it was just as for like music documentaries, I guess definitely one of the best that I've seen. But I haven't really seen that many. But
I saw since I did a mega deep dive because it's been forever since we announced we were going to do this, so I just. Like really often I explored something new about them. I've seen a bunch of the live stuff, like a lot of like the mainline live stuff, like live shows. Yeah. I'd already done that really like back in the day anyway, but a day or a year in the life of Metallica, I think is the title. I watched that. That was pretty awesome. Loved that. But I guess we can jump in.
We shall begin.
Cool.
So I'll start with my bottom. And what I did also, and what I'll try to do with any rankings is actually give a rating. Because that's how I think of stuff. Like the best is kind of doing a rating. I know you and Eddie Sparks don't really do the ratings, but
no.
Which makes it harder. But like my bottom album is going to have to be Saint Anger.
I knew it.
With a 1 out of 10.
A 1 out of 10.
Okay. Metallica.
This is going to be interesting. Let me just say that
band for me. I will reveal that.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of love for them later. A lot of love later. But positives are going to be
none. No.
I like the production on James's vocals.
Interesting.
And the production on the bass.
And that's it. That's it.
And it's weird. It's weird. It's weird because that's where they recorded the vocals where he literally is just holding a mic up to his mouth. Like he's not even in a vocal booth. It's very
They sound great to me.
You can hear the P's and B's popping off on the microphone and stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, that is kind of
Don't get me wrong, I like it too, but I also like a lot of other things about that album. But yeah,
that is kind of interesting
And the
that they
riffs, some of the
right.
riffs are probably fun to play.
Well, like, and it's
Mix it up.
like some kind of monster, you know. It shows like this is the madness that they, you know, during. So there's a lot going into that and a lot behind the scenes going on.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, however long that took, wasn't that like the Saint Anger was made over like a span of years? Am I right, or was it? It was like because like James went into like rehab and stuff, and so they had like a
Yeah,
gap.
It took a while.
I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years total them making the album.
But I mean, I'm blanking on his name, but they did a good
So,
thing with getting the new bassist at the time. So, and that was cool to see. Like, and I'm not trying to,
Rob
you know,
Trujillo.
Yep.
yeah, if I'm not trying to for the audience, you know, that haven't seen Some Kind of Monster, highly recommend it. But like, there might be some minor spoilers because like I'm talking about a little bit of stuff. But yeah,
To be fair, it's a 20-year-old documentary at this
yeah,
point, so you're good.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was just like getting him and he's insanely talented, insanely talented.
Yep, I agree.
So is that all your reasons, Ryan?
I'm not a hater. I promise. I'm not a hater of music. I'm really not. But it's I will do my side note. I like Lulu better than Saint Anger, marginally. So that would go above it on the ranking. Mostly because the production on that album's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Sorry, I keep muting it because there's yard work being done right outside my window.
Honestly, I thought that was a vacuum, to be honest, but
it's a weed whacker. But I'm gonna mute it while you guys are talking.
That's okay. So I guess I'll just go next. Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
What?
Yeah, I think this one kind of got near the bottom just literally because it's just simply like it was that unlucky one that ended up on the bottom, like because there's just better ones. Like I remember, like I tried it a couple times. I tried like, and all these albums. Let me just say that I like at least listened to twice, if not more than that. Some of them like near the top. It got like you know, extreme conflict between like the top three, and I had to listen to them a few times to kind of like, you know, everyone has their reasons to kind of like break stuff down. But yeah, probably one of the more forgettable albums for me, even though I listened to it a couple times and I just couldn't get into it. I know that one was like, because that one was like later on.
2016.
Yeah. So it's like it's under that like newer Metallica thing, and like I don't know. I don't really have a note for it. It just ended up on the bottom. Like so I don't know. It's just like it just but with everything else they have, it ended up there, and I don't, you know, maybe one day it'll be one of those albums I'll listen to and I'm like, dude, that I'm insane. Like it's like in the middle or something, but that's just where it ended up.
All right, makes sense. All right, I'm going to start off. My bottom pick, my number 11, is Reload, and this is always, I think this is in any ranking I've done, this has been my bottom pick no matter what, just because they already did an album like this called Load, and these are just kind of the leftovers or what was going to be a double album, but it was kind of released separately. But the way that the albums came out at the time, in 96 when Load came out, there was backlash against it, but I actually liked it. I liked that they were doing something different and something with these different styles that they didn't do before. But when Reload came out, I was like, all right, well, you guys got away with it the first time. This time, there's still great songs there, but all of their albums prior, I felt that they were making a step forward, and this was literally just a kind of standing in place. And you know, There are good songs. I mean, I love all of these albums 100%. Like, there's really only two of these, my bottom two, that I have legitimate, complaints about. And with Reload, it's just that I don't think the songs are as strong as Load, and it's kind of the same. It's giving you kind of the same vibe. Some of the songs, you could even take the kind of song it is, and you can put it up against a song that's on Load. Like, okay, so these were kind of similar ideas done in a different way. Some are very unique, and there's some fucking bangers on this album. But yeah, when it comes to my gut feeling, like, if I have to put one at the bottom, it's Reload's an easy one to put at the bottom for me, because I've already got Load higher up, and I like it more. So Reload ends up at the bottom.
So, man, how different all this is going to be for all of us.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Okay, number something.
10.
Yes, number
10. Yeah.
72 Seasons.
All right.
Bumping it way up to 4 out of 10. It's I think really, like, Trav's review of Hardwired, I think would be exactly what I would say about 72 Seasons, where it's not, I wouldn't call it like bad by any means, but it's just like, I very recently re-listened to everything and really thumbed through, and I can remember, like, Lux Eterna is good. Beyond that, I don't know. I'm struggling to remember much else about it, but it's not bad. It's just much lower than everything else.
And I kind of wonder if, like, some of the newer albums are gonna have, like, because we can't help sometimes that you listen, like, songs that are on earlier albums being kind of nostalgic. Like, I kind of wonder if, like, well, I mean, my ranking did run into this issue where, like, okay, there's like 5 songs on this one album that are just super nostalgic, and I've heard it on the radio my whole life or whatever, and that I love. And then you have, like, 72 Seasons that basically just came out, and it's like, I don't know, like, I thought that, and just kind of wanted to add, like, that, like, especially with my ranking, it did run into that issue. Where it's, where, like, I mean, each album, and I think Old Head would agree, I mean, like, and this is with any music, it kind of captures, like, a moment in your life where, like, you remember something, or you were having a hard time at this time or whatever, and something came out and it, like, helped you get through it, or you're not, you're happy, and it's, like, really good memories. And I remember the Avenged Sevenfold vocalist recently saying, like, he listened to 72 Seasons and he was like, nah. And then, like, he went and, like, had, like, a bonfire with his dad outside, and they listened to it, and it was amazing. Like, just stuff like that, where you have, like, these bonding moments with people or whatever, and then it's just like, you know what, so sometimes it does need that second listen. But yeah, I just wanted to add that, like, maybe that's the issue with some of the newer albums, is, like, I mean, there's obviously
maybe I wasn't feeling it.
Right, yeah.
Honestly, I've learned over the years that my mood can totally affect how I feel about an album. So if there's ever one that I feel negatively towards, I always go, I got to give it a different shot on a different day, because you never know.
Yeah.
And, like, with the Avenged Sevenfold guy, like, it's just like, if you take it in feeling positive, and you like it, if you still don't like it, then it's just not for you.
Yeah.
But,
and I had to do that a lot on my ranking. I had to just come back to something a different day. Like, it was a whole month-long process, like more than months long. So yeah, it's a lot. And they just have a lot. So it's like,
I mean, compared to some rankings I've done, they don't have that much.
No, yeah.
And those are kind of the fun ones too. That doesn't even take that long, you know.
Yeah.
So,
But my turn. Is it my turn now?
Yep.
My number 10 is Hardwired to Self-Destruct, which is the last album that I have like a major gripe about, and I enjoy it. There's some really strong songs on this album, but this is the first album they did where I started to hear influences in their music, things that reminded me of other bands. And there's a part of me that took that as like, oh, it's just like this part feels like an homage to a Black Sabbath song or whatever. But there's a lot of different flavors in there, but they all seem, and maybe it is them, wearing their influences on their sleeve. But it's the first time where it's not just me listening to a Metallica album going, fuck yeah, Metallica. It's me going, that sounds kind of like this. And it's the first time that's ever happened to me. I feel like they've been a pretty original band, even if they take on different styles. It's usually not something that you can immediately go, this sounds like another band. So Hardwired has that on some of the tracks. And there's just a couple of tracks that I just think aren't that strong. And they could have made it a shorter album. But the strong songs are really fucking strong. But yeah, it really did. Even at the time, I was so excited about some of the tracks and so lukewarm on some of the others that it was a really sort of uneven experience for me. And it's never really recovered from that. I've gotten used to the songs that I don't like as much, and I found things about them that I do like. But overall, it's still like an album where I go, yeah, man, they could have cut 2 or 3 songs and it would have been way stronger. But it's still good. I mean, it sounds good to me. I don't really like this. This is the album where I don't really like the snare drum, and people complain about Saint Anger, but I'm like, no, this one, it's way too. It sounds tiny. It sounds like he's hitting it with a pencil to me.
Right.
I don't know what it's not all the time, but it's enough to where I go, there's not enough thickness in the snare drum.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's still great, but it's number 10, and it really is the only other one where I can actually point out an actual gripe about it. Because from this point on, everything has got shit that I love, and I just have to figure out where it belongs in my heart,
And that might be another issue with like 72 seasons for me, is it is very long. Like it is long, like which is fine. I mean, I never usually complain about length specifically for an album, but it's like for an album I'm not feeling, it's like that's a long time.
100%. We recently ranked Tool, and if there's a Tool album where you start that album and you're not feeling it, that shit goes on a long time.
Yeah.
So,
but
I don't think I said my number 10, by the way, but it's okay.
You did. Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't technically say it, but I talked about 72 seasons, but it's even with Ryan, and it's 72 seasons. So I went like, whoa, whenever he said 72 seasons. No, you're good. You're good. Like we're going to probably lose
a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot. But basically just my reasoning is really just, I think this is something that happens to Metallica for me that is a big negative for the band in general, is sometimes, man, like their albums just, a lot of the times it's just like, some of the songs just sound the same. From what I'm remembering, I might be wrong on this, but like, they do a lot of repeat riffs, and just like, and I mean, there's only so many riffs you can write like over time, and that's like a problem with bands in general. But like, basically just that, I listened to it twice, still forgettable, and I wonder if it has that new Metallica problem where it's like, I mean, like, where it's like, like how many more songs can they write and still be kind of stick to being Metallica but stay fresh, I guess, or however you want to say that. But but yeah, I found that interesting that me and Ryan's was the same one, so. And that happens sometimes. Like the Beatles one, I think we had a couple overlaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically my reason. And like maybe it'll be like than seven. I always forget his name, but anyway, maybe it'd be like him. Yes, yeah. I don't know why I can never.
I'm not even a fan of that band, and I know his name.
Yeah, we'll probably get to them eventually, but yeah, maybe kind of like him, or just in the right setting, it's amazing or something somehow. You know, like sometimes you just gotta come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no.
Here we go.
Number 9. Kill 'Em All.
Okay. I mean, you're not gonna get any negativity from me having that.
Well, Kill 'Em All is the meaning of like that super, because with Metallica you get to talk about, I guess, several different, I mean, so you're flipping from 72 seasons to like Kill 'Em All is just the most classic, like early 80s thrash, like that kind of sound, which is a sound I have never, I'm always like right there with liking it.
Yeah.
Because it's good. Like it's legitimately good, but it's like, is it good for a whole album to me? Like it's one of those kind of things. Like it's also 4 out of 10, so we're stopping at 4 out of 10 for now. But I don't know. To me, it's specifically with Kill 'Em All, with their classic stuff, that has always been the album that just, I can't quite find like a favorite moment or song, which is cool, I guess, in its own way, but it's like also it's gonna knock you down if it's like, well, I need to be gravitating towards something. Like I don't know. And it's just that sound, which I love exploring. Like there's 2 million bands out there that's the early 80s, like new wave of British heavy metal, thrash. Like it's fun exploring those bands. Like, and for what it's worth, Metallica, I don't know if I'd say they are the best at what they do with that in that way. But there's, I mean, all those bands are pretty much different, which is cool. Because all the big four, Slayer has I think an 83 album that sounds pretty interesting, kind of in that way. But yeah, it just kind of sits toward the bottom.
Well, mine is also Kill 'Em All.
Hey.
But I did end up actually having some favorites. I noted that Jump in the Fire, probably my favorite on the album, and No Remorse. Jump in the Fire, actually. No Remorse. I wrote that whenever, but right now I don't know if I remember what it sounds like. But Jump in the Fire, I do. And I think to kind of add to what Ryan was saying is I think one problem with Kill 'Em All is it is the early 80s and they've had much longer after to like increase their quality. It's just got an early 80s sound to it. But I was surprised because I kind of started it at like writing it on the bottom and it actually got like moved up. So it was like, okay, but yeah, I think it's got that problem where it's just like, for an early 80s album, it's just like stuff is still memorable, but
I think if it was that, but like produced really, really, really well, my thought would probably change.
With more of a bassy sound, because I gravitate towards bass, like just in music. I think it ends up being the reason for like a lot of my favorites albums through any band is if you like, not to be like, if it sounds heavier, like, no, that's not the issue, but like just like Old Head was saying earlier, thickness is kind of like more so what I gravitate towards. So Kill 'Em All, definitely,
I have to remember too, like me and Trav, we grew up with that early 2000s, like bass. Stuff is produced really well, like kind of sound like.
Yeah.
So that might be part
But
of.
we also love 80s stuff, so
Yeah,
it's,
well,
it's
yeah.
you know, so it's kind of. But there's better 80s
Mm.
albums out there. It's like what I'm trying to say. But I really, it's one of those. This was one of those albums I'm listening to, and I'm like, man, I want to like this more because it's the OG. So it's like, okay, well, I guess not. but very memorable album art, by the way. I just kind of, I
Yep.
guess throughout the ranking, I kind of want to just briefly go over like little album art because like it's very memorable. So
Yeah. Cool. All right. Just to wrap these up, my number 9 is 72 Seasons. I actually really like this album. Really liked it the first time I heard it. I didn't love all the songs right away, but they all grew on me in one way or another. And I really, as opposed to how I felt about Hardwire, 72 Seasons sounds more like a Metallica album to me, and and incorporates some some things that they hadn't quite done that way before, but at the same time, and it's not just Metallica, it's every older band now for the most part. A lot of older bands would grab stuff from over here and over here when they did their albums, but then they all got older and they all kind of went down the middle. Of they figured out like what they wanted to do, and they kind of just started doing different versions of that. And 72 Seasons is still, it's not hugely different from Hardwired for me, except for their better songs. Production's a little better. And I like James's vocals all the way through. I think it's some of the best vocal work he's ever done when it comes to singing. Like obviously he's
right.
done more aggressive vocals that he's never been able to do that well again. But when it comes to writing melodies to songs that are memorable and hooky, this is the best that he's ever sounded. And it's the most that it feels like a full on band in this album because and it's weird because it's been, I guess it's only the third album that has Rob Trujillo on bass, but the other two have things about the production that call attention to the production. Whereas this one, I don't think it doesn't really do that for me. I'm more able to focus on the band, and they sound like a full band. And I just really like it. I think it's high quality stuff, especially for dudes that are 60 years old doing this. Because a lot of other bands from their era that are still going, some of them are just repeating the same things over and over again and diluting it over and over again. And other bands are just flat out repeating themselves with shit they already wrote. And with 72 Seasons, there are themes that easily are just like, oh, that's Metallica. I've heard something like that from them before. But overall, it's packaged in a way for me that just feels like a way more, almost like the big brother of Saint Anger, because Saint Anger is a lot of raw emotion, but this is like raw emotion if it was harnessed and presented a lot more. I don't know. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It feels more completed, and there's no rough edges. It's a very, very well put together, collection of raw emotional metal tracks. So I really enjoy it, and with time, maybe I'll maybe it'll even move up more. I don't really know, but for right now, because it's so new, and that's the hard thing is that with albums for me, there's been plenty of albums in my life that I've really liked when they came out, and I listened to it for weeks and weeks and weeks repeatedly and loved it. And then 20 years later, I'll think back and go, "Holy shit, I haven't listened to that in like 15 years." And then I put it on, and you're like, "It's not that great."
Yeah.
So I really gotta give some of these some time as well to really like sink in with me. So the newer stuff for me always has to go down at the bottom, just because I haven't lived with it long enough.
And like I remember when they released what the album art was gonna look like, and I love yellow and black when it's used right, and just amazing, like amazing. Love that they have like their the M in the corner, and it's so good.
I think it's great. Yeah, I love yellow and black, and I just love. That's another thing is that they, aside from maybe talking about like Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets, they've never really repeated the style of artwork that they have.
Yeah,
They've always brought something different and interesting that makes the just looking at the album unique, and
right. Yeah,
that's something to be said because there are plenty of bands. One that comes to mind is the band Creator and Destruction. Like these are German thrash metal bands, but they put out albums where I go, isn't that the last cover that you used, or just like slightly different? Like
yeah,
it's a whole lot of the same kind of shit over and over again. But
yeah.
Metallica have never done that,
I
and
think
that's why.
album art is always going to be important. I think because like you like it's kind of how you can divide it in your head too. Like, well, that song's from that because it has that color palette or whatever, and it's like
Yeah,
half the time how I remember what song is from what album is just from the art.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Artwork is super important, and I can't. Yeah, there's, and I love cool painted and drawn, covers and stuff. But sometimes, just an awesome theme done in the right way is
hmm
all I need. So
right.
8.
8.
Hardwired to self destruct.
All right.
It's just down at the bottom, basically for the reasons that y'all said. My biggest reason would probably be the length.
Hmm.
It's very long. If you're not really quite feeling it. But with Hardwired, I think why it's up a little more. What did I put? Oh, this one's 6 out of 10. So this is jumping up more. I like a lot more of Hardwired than what I've said before. I think because you got Moth into Flame, Moth
Yeah.
into the Flame.
Yeah, I'm looking at the names of the albums right now, or not the albums, the songs, and I don't remember any of these. Maybe
Moth
Atlas
into,
Rise. I think I do remember how that sounds, but no.
and I'm kind of with Trav also that it is kind of forgettable in a lot of ways as well. Like it's just got a couple more standout tracks than the albums
Yeah.
before. Like a few more tracks that I'm like, oh, I might listen to that again. Nothing that's like in my favorite Metallica songs ever. It doesn't have anything like that, but
Yeah.
I would say like the riffs are strong. Like I do like the production. Like it's I don't know. It's different. But yeah, my number 8.
Mine, surprisingly enough, is And Justice for All. This
Okay.
one, old head's like, okay, let's not do that. No. It just I'll say this one is one of my favorite, if not maybe my favorite album arts that they did. I like the kind of grayish with the green. The green really stands out to me. And just the overall design. I struggled with it because it was one of those albums that like obviously is an iconic look and out, it, and then it's like, okay, like is it gonna match the art? Like is it gonna be good? And I guess, well, what I ended up putting as my favorites is one, obviously. It's like one is hard to beat. It's just such a good song from beginning to end, like basically a perfect track. And I was very surprised by To Live, is it called To Live is to Die?
The instrumental.
Yes, because
Yeah.
I think because I'm a sucker for instrumentals. I love when a band just has a random song in an album that's just music,
Yeah.
and it's incredible. Um, Yeah, I was thinking that was the last song, but it's actually the next to last song. So it took till then for me to be like, okay, like, but Blackened is pretty good. But I just like out of the rest of the stuff that we're ranking, it just. Let me ask old head this because I don't know if this is actually true, but I saw somewhere on a podcast someone talk about Injustice for All. It might have been Joe Rogan, but someone said that there's not actually any bass in this album.
No, there is.
Oh,
There is? Okay. Okay.
There's a whole story with that.
Yeah, because like I heard that later after ranking it. So
yeah, it's really hard to hear the bass guitar, and there's several reasons for this. Probably the biggest is it's pretty much James and Lars mixing the thing, and I've heard many different explanations, and they all kind of make sense if you put them all together. So it's them, guitars and drums. Turn those motherfuckers up. But they had been playing a bunch of shows around that time, and they talked about how fatigued their hearing was trying to mix this. And the guitar tone that James uses is really beefy and has a lot of bass in it. And then Jason's bass tone has a lot of treble going on in it, and he picks at the same speed that James does. So a lot of times he's playing the same riff right underneath what James is playing. There are some differences here, but if you get some Beats headphones or some of those good sort of where it's a bass booster, you start to pick out the bass parts, but it is, in my opinion, mixed too low.
Yeah.
But when I first heard the album, 30 plus years ago or whatever, I didn't even think about that. It was just the songs sound how they sound, and I love how it sounds. Either. But if you really start to pay attention, I think the reason why that is annoying to me, not the album, but talking about the bass, is because there are so many other albums with the exact same problem. Even Slayer albums. There's a few Slayer albums where you do not hear Tom Araya's bass because it is mixed right underneath the guitar and they're playing right together.
Right.
So it is an actual fact that it's hard to hear the bass guitar, but it doesn't fucking matter.
Right. Well, and when I heard that, I was thinking maybe it was a light bulb moment where I was like, maybe that was my issue. It kind of the whole album kind of sounded maybe too light. That's the best way I could describe that.
It definitely does sound like it's missing something at times.
I'll give it that. My thing with it, and I was like, I'm gonna say this in the video at some point, unless I forget, is like what it sounds like is a normal band. Just imagine just normal band minus the drums, just normal band, and then maybe no bass. But I don't have a problem with that, but whatever.
Yeah.
But the drums are like you turn the treble up all the way, and the drums are way up here, and the band is down here. That's always been my thing with
that's it. Also a good point too, but the reason why I don't care is that is my number one air drum album. Like I know every drum part of that song, and I'm not even a drummer. I'm rudimentary at playing drums, but that is one that the album starts and I'm not playing air guitar. I am playing air drums entire hour, 70 minutes, however long that album is.
We all have our things we do when we're listening to music by ourselves. We all have them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it was one of those that kind of like I was surprised with how much like it just did not wow me that much. But obviously there was lower, but it was also higher.
So it's probably their most difficult to get into album though, because I think. Even when I first heard it, there were songs that took me a little bit to get my head around because it's the most progressive and the longest songs they had done at that point. So it's a lot to take in, but shit starts revealing itself.
I wouldn't have minded the whole thing to be an instrumental, to be honest. But I don't know. Like, I mean, It just, yeah,
Yeah, me and
I wish
Trav,
it was
that
better.
we are on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I love instrumental music. I love it.
Yeah,
So
there's a few
Yeah.
bands that I listen to that are strictly music, so I love that. Like just every now and then, it's not like my favorite thing, but love instrumentals, yeah.
Cool. Is it my turn?
I think,
Yes.
yeah.
All right. So number 8, just because I want to throw this in, if we were talking about it, this is where Lulu would go for me. And I really like that album. It's fucking weird. It's it is the I it's one of the reasons why I love Metallica. Some of the reasons I love Metallica are the reasons that everybody else does, and then there are reasons like this where they had this major comeback with Death Magnetic, and everyone was like, Metallica's back. And then they're like, our next album is a collaboration with Lou Reed. And it's fucking weird. And it's like, and when they announced that album and they released the first song, I was like giddy. I was so excited with how fucking weird it was. And I was just like, yes, this is why I love these guys. And so like it's never gone away. It's really hard to get through that album, but I don't know. There's something so great about it in a very bizarro kind of way. Anyway, but that's where it would go.
Which is crazy. That means you like it a lot. Which
yeah, I do.
didn't know.
I absolutely do.
But I think just I don't know. I may be totally wrong, but I feel like okay. So my initial reaction to Lulu was, I think it was 2011. It would have been because I was like a partial fan of Metallica by then. I mean, I knew about them and had listened. This is a much younger me, but yeah, I think I heard I think it was The View was the single. It was either The View or I started like Brandenburg Gate and was like, no. And I never returned to it until this video, like doing this ranking. I was like, I'm sitting through the whole thing and I'm giving my brutal thoughts. But I mean, I don't like it, but
it's perfectly reasonable.
It's not one of my least favorite albums of all time. It's not that level, I will say. Same with Saint Anger. So Saint Anger, not one of my least favorite albums of all time.
Yeah.
But it's not what I like in terms of music. Okay, so 7.
Well, my actual 8 though, my actual number 8, because this would have been in between 72 Seasons and my actual number 8, which is Kill 'Em All, which a lot of people would say this is way too low. There are people that this is what they go to Metallica for, and I absolutely understand that. But my introduction to Metallica was the song One, and then the first Metallica album I purchased on my own in 91 was the Black Album. And then I went backwards and I got all of their shit and I loved everything. I love Kill 'Em All. But I don't have that hang up where that's what I'm going to them for, because I fell in love with the band as the guys that had done 5, for the most part, very different albums. And I was just like, God, these guys are just fucking amazing. And so Kill 'Em All to me is absolutely great if I'm wanting a independent, not as well produced album that has more of a punky edge to it and really shows their influences of new wave of British heavy metal and stuff like that in there. For what that is, the album is a fucking classic. But as a fan, it goes here because I have to be in the mood for that version of Metallica. But if I am, I have an absolute blast with this album, and some of the songs I think are amazing. And there are some that have been a little bit overplayed live for me, but some of them I don't ever get tired of. But I love the young raw energy. I mean, they were all late teenagers when they made this album.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty fucking great. And when unknowingly kickstarted a subgenre of metal. And so it's just kind of cool. It's got a lot of cool things about it, but yeah, if I'm being honest, it's not a go-to as much as the 7 that are before it, but it's an undisputed banger of a classic for me.
Okay. So 7 is going to be Death Magnetic.
All right.
6 out of 10 still. I don't have a problem that a lot of people have, like, with the production. I honestly don't see what people are talking about. And if you never told me that, I wouldn't have even known. There was like just people have this huge hang up about the production.
You know what? You want to know what's funny about that though?
What?
People, sorry, we're talking about my favorite band of all time. I have a lot of things to say. When the album first came out, I very honestly was like, did they mean to make it sound like that? Because it sounds distorted. But if you listen to the version that's on Apple Music, Spotify, that it doesn't sound like that anymore. But people are still going, "Oh, fucking sounds awful." I'm all like, "You're just saying that now."
So if I had the CD in my car, or
you would probably be able to hear it. But I don't know if it's the mastering job that was done in putting it on Spotify and Apple Music, because I know that there's a different way they master those to put them on there. But every time I listen to them through Apple Music, I'm always just like, yeah, that sounds a lot more smoothed out than the original version of the album.
And people make a big deal about the Guitar Hero version is like
it sounds better,
the best version ever. Which, I mean, I'd never like sought out different versions of it. I just kind of
what's the song? What's the song that's on Guitar Hero?
Oh, the whole album. They kind of redid the whole
album. I think the Guitar Hero came out after that album came out. I think that was part of the thing.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's one of the only modern video games I've ever played.
But, and it moves up more because there's a little more. It's a little more memorable. I love Unforgiven 3. I think that's like a big reason why it's like, hey, this is a good album. Like, I think that song, Cyanide, was on the radio, so I semi grew up with that song, sort of.
Yeah.
And maybe All Nightmare Long was on the radio, I think.
Yeah, so I think so too.
Heard that a lot too. So there's a little bit of nostalgia going on from this point on, for sure.
But. So for mine, let me make sure I have the order right. Master of Puppets.
Everyone's getting out their pitchforks right now.
This one, yeah.
This is not the normal ranking.
I wanted to like it more. Obviously a lot of it is nostalgic heavy. Obviously Master of Puppets, obviously Battery. I think there's a couple of there's like the last half of the album I definitely had not. I don't think I'd heard. I think I had heard Welcome Home before, but anyway.
That's on the radio. Welcome Home.
I will say that being their third album, you could tell the increase in quality at this point that I really like about it. I didn't add any extra notes to it, just but obviously that album and that song in general has a lot of popularity right now because of Stranger Things, and obviously, and made the song cool again or whatever, and people are learning guitar because of it and stuff like that, and an incredible.
I'm just gonna leave there so you can look at you.
Just the entire rest of the show, but no, but yeah, that's. That was an incredible moment in that show. And I don't know, I think it brought a lot of people back to Metallica or for the first time, which is a beautiful thing for like I think kids, whatever, should go back and listen to Metallica because they are responsible for a lot of things and just and maybe Metallica being the reason that people explore newer metal or stuff like
Yes.
that. Like that's
Or
like what I think we need.
or literally just leads them down the path of any rock music.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
maybe
Yeah,
they
right.
didn't even listen to rock music at all, and that's like, I love that shit.
Yeah, and I've heard that happened a lot after the show came out, so it's kind of it's really cool to see. But yeah, I love the quality of it, but as for the rest of the albums, there was just stuff higher, so that's really just where it landed.
It's interesting though because like when you finally listen to these albums all the way through, it's very because they're so that stuff is so much further away now
Yeah,
than it was when I got into it, and so it's interesting to like hear like it makes sense because as time moves on, like somebody just can't present you with something and say this is a classic. You have to agree. That doesn't
yeah,
work.
yeah,
Um, but that's just going to happen. Shit's going to get diluted over time.
yeah.
But it's just interesting to hear in their body of work the stuff that stands out. Hearing it around now,
Well,
that's
and
just
this one was a struggle for me because I listened to it a few times. I kind of did like a listen to all of them and then bounced around and like whatever it takes to make a ranking happen.
yeah.
And it kept getting bumped up, it kept getting bumped down. The one above this fought this one a lot, so
Got it.
it's like I would almost say it's even with the other one, but something had to be on top of the other one, so it was just like it was rough.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. My number 7 is Saint Anger, and having this at number 7 says a lot about how I feel about their albums because I love Saint Anger. I think it's for what it is. I would not change a thing about it. I love everything about it, and um, it took a little bit of time for me to get to that because when the album came out, I was in a really weird place in my life, and I wasn't listening to a lot of metal at all. A little bit, but not very much. And so I was still keeping track of Metallica because they were my favorite band, but I wasn't like super excited like, oh, more Metallica, okay. But when I first heard the first track I heard off of it, which I guess was Saint Anger, the first thing I thought to myself, I was like, oh man, the fucking drums sound like they're from a fucking industrial album. This is awesome. Like I actually, to me, that was a selling point of the album at the time. I was like, fuck, nobody's doing drums like this. This is fucking awesome. But it was the songs themselves that took a little time for me to come around to,
Yeah,
because it's the first time James had done lyrics like that, and for a fan like me, the way he used to write, and then those that are so direct, I'm just like, this is really uncomfortable for me. But that's what the album's supposed to be. It's supposed to be his thoughts or whatever the thoughts were of the room, however they put those together, being brutally honest.
yeah,
And the riffs at the time are obviously very influenced by what was going on in heavy music, which was things down tuned, a lot more simplified. But and at the time, I remember thinking, oh, I can see them being influenced by these other bands. But the weird thing that's happened over the years is that once I started to get really into the whole package that is Saint Anger, I also went back to listening to stuff from the time because I love Korn and I love bands like that. And if I listen to them and I listen to Saint Anger, I go, nope, now I don't hear any connection at all, aside from not having guitar solos or being down tuned. That's really the only thing that I can hear. In fact, at this point, I can't think of another album that sounds anything like Saint Anger.
yeah. Isn't Saint
And
Anger is so weird after
yeah,
listening to all of them? It's very very odd.
That's
what's up?
that is another compliment I guess I could give the album is that it is extremely unique. It is very one of a kind, its own thing.
Yeah. And so the really weird thing
sure.
about the album though is that it's a very different vibe. But once again, like I said before, when they bring something different to the table, I really enjoy it. But the thing about this album that's become so strange to me is that, you know, in juxtapositions, one of those words to kill them all, I said that this is not what I go to Metallica for all the time, and I got to be in the mood for this. Saint Anger is an album that I may not be in the mood for it, but once a song starts on it, I'm like, no, never mind. I am on board with this album now. And even the lengths of the songs over time, like some of it's a little repetitive and goes on a little too long, but I start to feel it's like doom metal bands or these crazy sort of proggy instrumental bands where they literally make a song, you know, 15 minutes long when really they could have done everything in that song in about 6. But there's something about creating that mood and just sitting in it. And so the songs that are longer on Saint Anger, that's how I feel. I start to feel like it almost, I don't know if they meant it that way, but it's like them presenting kind of an uncomfortable Metallica situation and saying, cool, you guys stay here for 7 minutes. You know, it's like,
yeah.
And I just love, I love it. I love everything about it, and the backlash that's happened and continues to happen only makes me like hold it dearer to my heart, because I've always felt very misunderstood and kind of rough around the edges. And then that's exactly what Saint Anger is. And so I kind of look at it as like, I understand where they were, what this album is, and in the context of their discography, it's an album that to me does not get old. Always sounds like something fresh every time I listen to it. There you go, that's my spiel.
And I'll add on also that the first time because I don't know if I'd ever listened to it like back then. I mean, I would have been like however young, but like back then, as in like 2009, 2010, I don't know if I ever really dove into it then, but I definitely did prior to this ranking. I'd say like a few, like 2019 or something. I finally was like, okay, Saint Anger.
Yeah.
And it is one of the few albums I could ever say where you hear, whether you've heard, I guess, Frantic, I guess the first song, and then Saint Anger, after that point, and you'd never heard anything else, there is this feeling of like, what is going to happen next?
Yeah.
That is a vibe that creates. Like if I were to imagine me back first hearing it through, that was definitely the feeling. So I can compliment it in that way for sure.
Sure.
Before we go on to the next one, does anybody else need to pee? Because I'm gonna take a quick pee break. So I'll be like 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
All right. So I'm about to freaking, like, it's about to happen.
But
been holding that for a while.
We got an emergency. Quit talking. Go do it.
A few moments later.
How sweet are you? Bum, 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 bum. How sweet does it get? It's in my head so bad, bro. Like, I really talk about Saint Anger. And I'm like, so, yeah. But yeah, that song gets in my head so bad, too. Every time.
All right.
Where are we at next?
It's a great one.
I think we started. I purposefully interrupted right whenever we're supposed to like go to Ryan. So
I think that's
we're at number 6.
Yes, which means And Justice for All.
There you go.
6 out of 10.
I'm noticing like we have a lot of stuff that's like getting close to each other, you know, but not necessarily overlapping every time. So it's interesting. Real quick though, did anybody know what the shortest album is? What is the shortest album?
Their shortest album?
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be Ride the Lightning.
Okay, because like
shortest album.
Oh, true.
I was gonna add that about Master of Puppets. At least it's short and sweet, whereas like Injustice for All does sound kind of long. Like so.
I don't know if it is longer. It's just longer songs.
Right.
But of course, One is one of my favorite Metallica songs. I mean, in any To Live Is to Die is great. I'm with Trav on that. I don't know, and it sounds, I mean, sounds good in general throughout. I mean, it's just good. It's just not. It's just still toward the bottom-ish, or toward the middle, I guess.
Yeah, we're pretty much at the middle right now.
Mine is Ride the Lightning. This one fought Master of Puppets really hard because I think it does kind of have that, like I said, Master of Puppets does have that. You can tell the increase in quality, but I think just overall I ended up liking the songs more on Ride the Lightning, whereas at some point maybe it was below Master of Puppets. It just really, it was just so back and forth. Obviously, Fade to Black is just, like, that's a masterpiece of a song. And what I discovered, I think, through something like Ride the Lightning, I made a note that Fade to Black is my favorite on this, and the soft stuff of Metallica, what I have come to discover with just this journey of Metallica for me is that what I didn't expect to happen, because, like, I love heavy music, like, you know, I going into Metallica thinking, like, okay, these heavy songs are going to be the best, and, like, you know, but their soft stuff really surprised me. Like, it's like, I don't know, they know how to write melodies and make it sound, but I kind of wonder if something like Fade to Black had that vibe of, like, of nostalgia, though. Because I've heard it a million times, so it probably helped bump it, you know, but I've really discovered that some of their soft stuff is, like, my favorites through the whole of all the albums, and it's just and I said Injustice for All is my favorite album art, which I think is still true, but Ride the Lightning's, like, number 2, because it's just, like, I've heard old heads say before, it's just iconic. And took me a long time to realize that was even a chair, by the way. Like, I always thought it was like a microphone or something, but whenever you look at it, you know, in, like, HD on Spotify, or, like, if you see a vinyl or whatever, it all makes sense now. Ride the Lightning.
To me, it always was a bug zapper.
Which is, oh my gosh! It just,
in a weird way, that makes it really awesome. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's an iconic cover. And let me see. Yeah, From Whom the Bell Tolls and Fire with Fire. Yeah, just, like, it fought hard to beat Master of Puppets, and I think it's like they're almost even, though, because they're both just really good albums. But usually I would go for, like, the better quality album or whatever, but I think just overall this just had more favorites than that one, so it kind of just, it beat it. So
cool.
But yeah, really good for freaking 1984. So
86. But yeah.
86.
Oh no, 84 was Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, 84.
Yeah. My bad. I was like, wait, did Spotify have it wrong? And then old head is over here beating Spotify's knowledge.
No, that'd be it's the old head brain that's, like, getting things mixed up. My number 6 is Load, and I did not like this album very much when it came out. I liked things about it when it came out. It took a little bit for me to really get into, but I did like that they were doing something different, but the shift was a little bit jarring at the time. And I was fucking 18 years old or whatever. I was, I was a kid. I wasn't, I liked that it was different, but there was something about it that I was disappointed because I wanted more stuff that was metal. I wanted metal. And there's really not a whole lot on that album that I would call metal. But songwriting wise, so much of it started to stand out to me as some of their, like, best written songs. Just the way some of the songs unfold, I'm just like, it's fucking great. And they do, you know, there's plenty of things I could point out, but there's all sorts of different parts of the album where they do things where with additional listens you hear a thing and you go, oh, I didn't even notice they were doing that there, and it adds this other layer of like harmony on this song. And it's really well produced, sounds fucking great, really big ass thick bottom end to it, and I love that. um, and over the years it's just become, you know, this is the one that holds the most nostalgia for me because I was a teenager at the time, and it was the first one after I became a huge fan that came out. And so even though at the time I was like, well, I wanted this to be more metal, over time it really grew to where I just, there's no way to get around the fact that I just really enjoy the songs. And so, and once again, I like the fact that they did an album cover that looks totally different than anything they'd ever done and pisses some people off for some really weird reason, but whatever. I don't know. I'm always just like, if you have a problem with seeing blood and semen, maybe you need to talk to your priest or your therapist, because I don't. It's we all we as dudes we have both of those and we see those occasionally. So it's like, okay, what's the problem with that? But anyway, that's my number 6.
Okay. Number 5.
Number 5.
Ride the Lightning. With a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Holy
Yeah, we're still in the 6 out of 10.
Old head's getting the tomatoes ready. So
to me, it's a 16 out of 10. But you know,
so I don't know. So still in the middle, middle-ish. Nothing bad about it. It is another case where it's just kind of sitting where it sits, not for any like huge reason. It's just I do like everything else. They have more, but Fade to Black. Fade to Black, I'm sure, was my ultimate favorite Metallica song for a very long time. Like before I like super dove in and super like knew as much as I know now. For Whom the Bell Tolls is also a lot of nostalgia with both those songs, because both those songs are on the radio. Like, and when I say on the radio, like I'm mostly talking about like late 2000s, like because I don't listen to the radio anymore.
Right. Well, it's how we would have got exposed back then, though. That's
what I mean when I say the radio, which also would apply with Cyanide, because that's 2008, and that's when I would have been really listening to the radio. But it's solid. You got Call of Cthulhu, also Cthulhu, or either one. Instrumental, so we love instrumentals. So. Mm-hmm. Yep, it's solid.
Nice.
Mine is going to be Load. I wrote that Outlaw Torn. The intro of that surprised me. That honestly doesn't even sound like I don't know. It just really, I was like, wow, this is so good. Just straight riffage. I may be wrong on this. I'm gonna be dead wrong, but. Like, I think one huge difference to me, like, which Load and Reload, they do sound like they were supposed to maybe go together. And there's just too many songs or whatever happened that they split it. I kind of like, this was the first time that I ever, which the quality is amazing. Like, the production's great. It's one of the reasons it got way higher than others, which surprised me because I've heard nothing but bad things about Load and Reload, and just going into these fresh, like with like no expectation at all, I was like, did Metallica almost do not necessarily Southern rock, but it has almost a country rock vibe to it, just a little bit.
There's a little bit of that,
bit of like and so I was like, I wanted to kind of note that because that was the first time I'd heard them really do this, and which
Mama Said is a country song. I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna pull up the songs right now because
to me, Well,
If you take away,
I've also heard it called Southern metal. I've heard it called
I
that.
I just my only thing about that song is that if you listen to a mix of it where they take away the slide guitar, it's just an acoustic ballad. It doesn't sound
Yeah,
country at all. There's
right.
nothing. I mean, he doesn't sing with a twang. The lyrics aren't
Well, no,
really like anything
And
from a country song.
maybe it's just because they take this. Maybe I don't know. Maybe not all of them, but like the songs are a little slower or something. Like I
Well,
don't know. There's
there,
something about it that just like you have a southern vibe to it,
there
and
are there's definite moments where there feels like there's a little bit of a southern rock vibe on some things. Yeah.
so that it really and like I'm not like I don't really like country that much, so it's like really but it's not obviously not country, but it was
Mm.
just versus
it's
like
far
other
enough
stuff.
away
I
from
think yeah,
country. It's far
right.
enough
It
away.
stood out enough because it took a little bit of a different direction, maybe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that about it a lot.
Cool. Oh, my number 5 now.
Old
Shit.
head.
My number 5 is Death Magnetic. Death Magnetic is a very important album for me because it brought me back 100% as a Metallica fan. Because, like I said, early 2000s, I really wasn't into a lot of metal. And honestly, music in general, I was really just grasping for trying to find something that would make me feel what I felt with earlier shit when I was an early teenager. But Death Magnetic came out, and it was like the right album at the right time for me. I was getting back into metal, and then my favorite band, ever, comes out with this album that made me feel like I felt when I was a teenager. Like this was what I wanted them to follow up the Black Album with back when I was 18 years old. And I love the fact that they kind of did this album that sounds like it kind of fits in between and Justice for All and the Black Album, where it does have that some faster and some more technical stuff, but it also has stuff like Unforgiven 3 that's very melodic and beautiful, and to me it's just like banger after banger, and the energy on that album is insane. It just sounds so urgent to me, and that's a big reason why I didn't really care the earlier versions of it when it sounds distorted, because I around that time for band practice and a lot of other things I drove around in my car a lot, and I would be listening to that album in my car, and I would always be like, it sounds like it's trying to bust out of my car speakers. And I love that
Yeah,
about this album
right.
because
Yeah.
that's how I feel. How it makes me feel, and it hasn't lost any of that appeal to me over the years. I put it on, and I still feel like there's something about it that has such a great energy to it, and I love the songs, and it brought me back on board to where I was kind of iffy about being into Metallica, even though I was following them. And then I've literally that made me a bigger fan than ever, and I've never looked back. I've been like a giant fan, ever since that album came out. And so, yeah, so I love it. It's very, very
I mean,
important.
that's really cool to hear for like because you were like a fan, and then like it took like 2008, like something that could have been way wrong, like just
Yeah,
because it's newer at the time. Yeah, that's really cool to hear.
yeah, it was great.
But one thing, I guess, before I continue on, which would be my number 4,
Yeah, number 4.
Yes.
is that on the subject of Metallica, I have to mention. I mean, anybody could mention it because it's just how it is. But like every album does have a different vibe. I feel like. I mean, I would say the majority. I say the majority, but like maybe just a few of them. Maybe the '90s pocket. The vibe to me is like the dead middle of summer. Like I don't know. That's always been just kind of like you're in an older vehicle, like a '90s car, like just
Sweating it
and
out.
it's like 100
No
degrees
air in your car.
outside
Yeah.
and you're blasting music. I don't know. That's always just been my constant vibe, like with Death Magnetic, I feel like really has that vibe.
I think, and it might just be. I think did it come out in the summer of 08 or maybe like we were listening to it on the radio?
I honestly don't remember what time of year
that or the
out.
songs were on the radio in the summer. And
there might be something subconsciously happening too, where you're thinking of like a festival. Like I don't like neither me or Ryan. I don't think we've seen Metallica live, but
No.
but like it, yeah, I could see what you're saying with that. Like it just kind of reminds you of sweating. It just reminds you of sweating.
Video without mentioning, like that's the vibe I get from a few.
It's always interesting how music does that. It reminds you of something, or even like it might bring a smell to you that you don't you remember, but you don't, or you're not smelling right now. It's really weird how that happens.
Yeah. But number 4, Reload, 6 out of 10. Reload, it's getting to be
Reload.
It's getting to be more so on the top end of things. So what that means is it's more, I guess, stuff that's more my taste. Because Reload is approaching a lot closer to like stuff I prefer. Trav, I don't know. I've always called Trav more of like the metal guy, like metal
versus you, yes.
Versus
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So Reload, peels back, like it's not as we're far away from like Kill 'Em All, or that kind of feeling. So it's Fuel is one of my super all-time favorite Metallica songs. It always has been. There's also nostalgia with it.
It's a great way to start an album.
And I mean, the rest of the songs, I mean, the rest of the songs, I guess you have Better Than You.
Yeah. Better Than You's on there, yeah.
Okay. Better Than You is great.
The other singles off that album were Memory Remains and Unforgiven 2. Were like the big singles off that,
Yep. And the rest of it's just a solid album. It's just better than what I've mentioned before, and it's closer to my taste in music.
Sure, yeah.
Well, me and Ryan are even again. It's Reload,
nice.
Which is kind of crazy. So as you can see with mine, I put load and then reload. So that was a struggle, and I think the reason for that is because they do have a similar vibe. But I did notice that this one is definitely, like I said, the other one almost has like a southern vibe. This one went into, somehow they put all these songs together and all made it actually sound like it's going more towards metal again, like for me. Like, and I think maybe that's why I liked it more. But it also is relying on nostalgia. So Fuel, The Memory Remains. Yeah. Better Than You, I think I had already heard. I really love that song. I really liked Fixer. All the other ones I don't remember. So, it's just like I always just wish I could just like have this on or whatever. But Unforgiven 2, so it was continuing the trilogy. Like it just a little bit better to me than Load, and those kind of went back and forth. And honestly, there might have been a time when I first listened to the album, like doing the ranking, there might have been a time where this was at the top. So
it's very funny that with Load and Reload, it almost seems split right down the middle. I hear an even number of people that prefer Load or Reload. It's really strange because it really seems like there's just as many behind either one. It's interesting.
I think I like this album art a little better.
That one's
and I like that they went a little they went a little different with their logo too on these two albums. So I like that. And I like that they just whoever actually designed it, but someone just wrote "re" in front of "load," and it's just like it's something unique to it. I like that they both have like that reddish and black going on, and so yeah, just a little bit better than "Load" to me. Not much more on that, just a little bit more rock kind of feel versus "Load." So maybe that's why I gravitate to it more.
Cool. Well, for my number 4, I feel good because people would normally be mad at me, but not as mad as they are at you. My number 4 is Master of Puppets. This is when I really have to chalk it up to my enjoyment and my experience with albums and my gut feeling and how albums make me feel. Because Master of Puppets is an album that if somebody comes to me and says this is the best album of all time, I would say you're not wrong. Like because it's to me it's absolutely flawless from beginning to end. For me, the production is amazing, songwriting is amazing. There's every song on this album is just a fucking banger, and even the ones that are pushing the 8-minute mark, to me, there's no wasted moment anywhere on this album. And so I don't have much to say about it that a million people haven't already said. It's a classic, and I love it. I just don't have as much of a deep connection with this one as I do with the next 3. So that's why it's number 4.
Number 3, Load. 6 out of
Right.
10. I like it basically evenly with 3 Load, like you said. I guess it just so happens, I guess I like more about it because you got King Nothing, one of my favorite Metallica songs.
Yeah, that's a song. Not to interrupt, but they on this last tour, they played King Nothing, and there are some songs when they play them live, it just reminds you of how fucking great they are. Just the feeling of King Nothing live was so good. So I love that one.
Hero of the Day is interesting. Until It Sleeps is not my favorite Metallica song, but that might be my second favorite Metallica song.
It's great.
Like,
that was another
super
nostalgic
high,
one for me too.
Very nostalgic. I've heard it a lot, and it's just really awesome.
And isn't it awesome though
some
too
days
when
it could be my favorite, but
when you like hear a nostalgic song again through this process and it's just like better than it's ever been. Like that happened a lot with this whole listen through too. Where I'm just like, man, like that's how it happened to me with Fade to Black and One. I'm like, these are just they're so good.
That's the number one thing that I love about getting older. I hate being older, but the beauty of time and space between your life and things over the years, the past few years or so, there's been stuff that I wasn't that into back in the day that I will hear, and some spark will go off in my fucking head, and I'll be like, never in my wildest dreams did I think this song was going to affect me, and it took 30 years to do so or whatever, and I fucking love that. I love being alive and having the time for those things to happen. So I love that.
Are we on to my number 3, or are we going to add more?
Or wait, 3, or maybe it's my number 3.
No, you just did your number 3. It was Load.
Oh, okay, we're good.
Okay. Number 3, the Black Album.
Black Album's gonna
so
be
curious.
nostalgia.
I haven't been keeping track of your ranking. I'm like, what the fuck is number 1 gonna be? Because I'm like, you already got Master of Puppets and Black Album out of the way.
And I think great. I know is what's. I think I know. I don't
know. Obviously, Enter Sandman is iconic. Sad But True is iconic. Holier Than Thou, and you have the original Unforgiven. Mm-hmm. Like it just like it.
That's one of my favorite Metallica songs.
Like, and it almost like it's weird how it's like it's right on 91, and I would almost say it sounds like it. Like if that makes sense. Like I don't know. There's something, and that's how I felt about Load and Reload as well. Is just like, I guess like when 90s metal hits, like but obviously they're not.
It's all part of that chunk of time where all those albums came out within months of each other. Mm-hmm. Like Black Album, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger, Nirvana, Nevermind, like all that stuff was all at the same time. Mm-hmm. And as a 13-year-old that year, I was eating that shit up. But now I look back on it and I'm like, I was fucking spoiled. All of that
Right.
shit coming out in the
Well,
same year.
a year like that compared to like me or Trav,
Uh-huh.
like it's, I don't know. No matter what year that's going to be 2006.
Right.
So I mean, I don't really know
We had
any
heard a lot of this album on the
albums
radio,
from
though.
2000.
Rather, we heard it on the
Yeah.
radio, or we were playing it on like Guitar Hero or Rock
Oh
Band
yeah,
or one of those.
yeah.
So,
At that point, it's already classic rock.
right. Yeah, like, but The Unforgiven, like, I don't even know. I've never even noted really which one is my favorite. I would maybe 3, but the Unforgiven original is obviously fantastic. I would have to like really listen to all 3 back to back and break it down. But I think what a lot of that helped this album is just a lot of nostalgia. But I would say it's nearly perfect. Wherever I may roam, nothing else matters, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very. I don't think I had ever heard The God That Failed, and I thought that was really surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Just and the album art
Oh,
is
hey.
obviously
I didn't know if I didn't know I had it
Guitar
within
Hero
arm's
Metallica.
reach. But,
But like, yeah, it's like an hour and 2 minutes, so it's a little bit longer, but it doesn't feel like it. I feel like
No.
it kind of, I don't know, it kind of feels shorter when you're listening to it, and yeah, I don't know.
What I will say about, I guess this is interrupting old head. Sorry.
That's fine.
The Black Album. It's another one of these rare kind of albums, like that I could say this for, but it's just, it feels like just a very important album.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is. That's always been the vibe to me. It's like just a very, regardless of the music or the time or anything, it's just one of those, like, it just feels very important. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I feel that way about, like, Nevermind is another one I feel like that. But it's just important. I don't know whether you like it or not. Like, we like it, I guess, but
in hindsight, the most important thing for me about that album is that I feel like all of these heavier thrashy bands weren't going to tell anybody that they were sick of doing the same shit over and over again. Metallica really sort of ushered everybody into the 90s like, hey, you could do whatever the fuck you want. And look at this. We had no idea it was going to be this successful. There we go. You're welcome. And then, of course, all these other bands started, trying to expand their sound. And a lot of them made some of the best shit they ever made, in my opinion. So it really did move metal into an area where it's like, fuck the rules. Just make heavy music however you want to make it.
Right.
And so I might be romanticizing it a bit too much, but still, Is it my turn?
Yeah, I think it's your number 3. Yes.
Number 3, my number 1 air drum album, And Justice for All. I love every moment of this album. I love how it sounds. I get everybody's gripes that the bass is too low, but it's one of those albums that over the years, because at first it is a little bit tough to get into some of the tracks, but it's almost like finding your way, through the woods, and then you finally find the path. And then once I did, and I really sort of connected with these songs, and they just, I don't know what it is, because it's really the heaviest album that they ever did, the most aggressive album they ever did, and also I guess the most technical, really, with all the starts and stops and stuff like that. And so I like that kind of metal. I don't necessarily like quote unquote prog metal, but I like metal that fucks with time signatures and fucks with song structures in a way that can be a little bit jarring at first, but when you get into it, it kind of makes sense. And I just think every song's a banger on this. And so but once again, this is another these are nostalgia, and this one too was the one I heard after the Black Album, and I was just like, man, this is even heavier than the Black Album. I was just floored at the different flavors of Metallica at the time. But this one's really stuck with me, so it ends up being number 3.
Okay.
Number 2.
2, the Black Album, 7 out of 10.
All right.
See me and Ryan's ranking is dancing around each other a lot. It's very interesting.
I guess our tastes are similar. I mean, that's been in the past. We have similar.
It's not what we expected.
Tastes, sort of. I don't know, but I don't know. It's iconic. I don't really know what else to add other than what we've been saying.
Yeah.
Like Sad But True. Definitely one of my favorite, maybe top 3 Metallica songs. Unforgiven for sure is up there. I mean, front to back, it's just extremely solid and good. And I don't know. It's great.
I think it is important, like, because I think the reason for the top 3, I think for all of us probably, is just sort of because this is my first time to like listen to all of them and just experience Metallica just face first. And it's just like, I think the most go-to, like, if you were to listen to, even if you're not like a major fan, like, because me and Ryan are not as, I think I could say both of us are not as big of a fan as Old Head is of Metallica.
No.
But
I think a lot of people are not as big.
But everybody, I mean, I get it though, because I have my favorite bands that I like know front to back like that, and like, so it's just kind of that's kind of how I base my ranking, is like, what are the albums that are gonna stick out in my brain that, like, if I'm getting the mood for Metallica, what am I gonna go to?
Yeah.
And yeah, like, so I agree with everything like we've been saying about the Black Album. Is just like, it's just so solid, especially for them entering the 90s like that and just with a banger. So I think it's my number 2 now.
Yep.
Okay. This one fought number 1 so hard. Like, and still to this moment, what I could say is that it might be number 1. Like, it's literally like, it's so close, and I think it's depending on the mood and the day, but Death Magnetic.
Nice.
Surprised the living heck out of me, because I was like, I'm going into Metallica in 2008, and like, here we go. And then, it's just like, I was very, I'm gonna look up the songs again, but I was very surprised by, like, I agree pretty much everything Old Head has already said about it. Like, it does feel like, well, his version of that is like in his life, like where it came out and it was an important album to him, and it does feel like an important album. It's really weird how, like, I could sense that, like, kind of because it was the following to Saint Anger, right? Afterwards, it was the,
no. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, okay. And then
so like, I think it was important in that way, where it's like, Saint Anger got all its hate or whatever, and like, and I just don't know how people didn't hear this and just, like, supposedly there's a lot of Death Magnetic hate, so I don't get it, because I think it's amazing.
Well, there's something that happened around that time though. So there's a lot of love for Death Magnetic, but as the early 2000s moved on, it became trendy to pile on to Metallica. So people that had nothing invested in Metallica and on any other day wouldn't really have an opinion, all of a sudden felt like they needed to have this extreme negative opinion towards them, because that was almost like the patch on your battle vest for a metal person. You're like, oh, I love Iron Maiden and Metallica sucks. Like, that's what you needed to say in order to, like, I don't know, but it became very cool to hate on them. So even things that didn't necessarily deserve hate, ever since then have been getting hate. So
just some of the most interesting and coolest riffs I think they've ever written. All Nightmare Long is probably my favorite. Thanks, really loud truck. It's a very loud truck outside. Just it does some songs sound kind of light, compared to other albums, but I think just the guitar work really makes up for it for me. Did Oldhead, did you say something about the drums with this album, or the drums were
No.
like two?
We
Okay.
were just saying the production.
It's just the mix. The mix
Right,
of it is,
yeah.
or the production is a little. It's
I could
brick
see-
walled. It's like turned up to the maximum volume, and so
Right.
the original version just clips a little bit.
But that like no and All Nightmare Long is just, I love that. Like that sounds like some like earlier 2000s bands I like to me. It, for example, it just sounds like something Chevelle would write, that song, I think. But Cyanide was a radio hit at the time, and when I heard that again, I didn't know what the song was going to sound like. I was like, oh, it's this song, so it was so cool. What is the album that, or not album, what is the song? There was an instrumental on this one. Was it Suicide and Redemption?
Yeah.
It's incredible song. Like, just like, that's just them having fun, just being heavy and just going all out, and just a really, like, just, you gotta have songs like that on albums. I think that's just a fun headbanger, you know? And I think that's what it is. And The Day That Never Comes is like probably one of my favorite soft songs now. And I like some of these I'm noticing the little check marks on my Spotify, so I'm being reminded of what I ended up adding to my everything playlist after. So Metallica, throughout the whole experience, I'm just grabbing like the things along the way to add to my playlist. So that made it on there. Really love This Was Just Your Life. It's just a great way to start the album. Yeah, I just think it's great, and I was very surprised by it.
Nice. I love any love for that album. I appreciate.
And the album art, like, to be bold enough to go like white and silver with some black or whatever, that was really cool to see.
Yeah,
I love the album art.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna wrap up the Black Album thing here. Number 2, my number 2 is the Black Album, and this will forever be a very important album for me because I was 13 when it came out. I was at the point in my life where I could fully say that I was fanatical about music and discovering bands. That's around the time that it really kicked in, where I was like, I'm fucking serious about this, and it's never ended. But it was a big deal because it made me a huge Metallica fan. But to me, the album still sounds so good. To me, it's like, it's one of those albums like, oh, you got a new stereo system, you need to test it out, just let's put on the Black Album. Like, it's just so well produced, and the songs are just, because they're shorter songs, but if you really look at the time limit on the songs, they're still pushing 6 minutes each, almost every song. But they're just, for what they were doing on Injustice for All, it's a little more simplified. But I think that it's exactly what they needed to do. And fortunately for them, it was a success, because it feels like the kind of album that they could have put it out and had a giant backlash, and the mainstream wouldn't have taken any notice, because a lot of bands did do that. And then they could have totally imploded and maybe never made an album again, because they put so much effort into this fucking thing. But I'm glad that it worked out, because when I see an album like the Black Album being one of the highest selling albums ever in the history of music, I'm just like, it fucking deserves it. Every aspect of it, to me, it deserves that kind of pedestal. Even though it's not my favorite, it's not my number 1, but it is like one where I'm just like, yeah, it's pretty unfuckwithable in every way for me. So it's my number 2.
And so this will be another side note before number 1.
Okay.
S&M 1, 2 would go right here.
Oh, nice.
Maybe 1 over 2. 2 is like super long. Like, they're both pretty long, but 2 is like really long. But I really like those. Like, I think I mentioned that to Trav, and Trav was like, "Well, you're gonna like those because they're live albums, so they have a bunch of like good songs." Which, yeah, I get, but just how it sounds is amazing. I've seen
Yeah.
the concert. I actually bought the Blu-ray for Dayton. I haven't mentioned Dayton, but Dayton's my friend from kindergarten. His favorite band's Metallica, and
Okay.
he's kind of who brought me into the fandom just more than I would have been without him. I guess I would have already been a fan, but
Yeah.
yeah, he wanted that, and I actually bought S&M 2 on Blu-ray with to give to him also. So I've seen those.
It's another reason why I love the band, though, because as a fan, they are really good at giving me different things and keeping me really engaged. Because if you think about it, they went from Saint Anger, no, from the Black Album to Load and Reload. Then they did the S&M. Then they did their covers album, Garage Inc. Then you got Saint Anger. But then a little bit after that, you got Death Magnetic. And then they're like, we're just going to do a fucking movie now. And then after they did the fucking movie,
Yeah,
like, oh, we're going to do Lulu. Like, it's like literally everything about their output. It's like every couple years there's something that they do that I'm just like, oh fuck, I love that they did that. They haven't done that yet. So it's
I did watch Through the Never with Dayton, so that's another thing I watched.
I love it.
But yeah, me and Trav got to watch it. Like, I'd love to rewatch it because it's been forever since I've seen it. So I remember the version they have on there with One. That's probably the best version of One ever.
And I want to go and like listen to all the albums you guys are talking about because I didn't. Like, it'll be the first time, so I have no idea what they sound. I mean, I've seen plenty of like live stuff of them on YouTube or whatever, but never like dived in enough.
Yeah.
Real quick, old head, how many times have you seen them live?
5.
Okay.
Although this last one was 2 shows, they played 2 nights, and so technically 6. But it was the same
I've always wanted to see them, like, so one day it'll be the first time, so that'll be cool. Get that, because there's nothing like that experience, that live, like, right.
They're great live. This last time was seeing them in a stadium, and we weren't very close, but like by song 2 or 3, you didn't even notice that you were in a stadium far away from them. It's right. They put on that kind of a show.
But
number 1 next for
we're doing number 1s.
Number 1, Master of Puppets.
Nice.
9 out of 10. It's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Sweet.
Truly amazing, front to back. Battery, Master of Puppets. I think my favorite song my favorite song is Orion. That's my favorite Metallica song ever made. One of my favorite metal songs, maybe.
They played that this last tour, this last concert.
And Sanitarium, Welcome Home, that one of the best songs ever. I mean, it's just number 1. I mean, there's not much else I can say other than their most classic album ever. So like their Abbey Road. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, have you noticed that I haven't added a specific album yet?
Yep.
Oh shit!
Straight Anger, baby, let's go.
This
I don't.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy about this.
Okay, but Death Magnetic, so many times was number 1 in this, and I think it's just literally because it is so different. And look, Saint Anger, it's an angry album. It's hype music. It's workout tracks. I mean, I'm always gonna gravitate more towards those types of riffs and stuff. And like, I'm very aware that it sounds like bad in some areas, and yes, the lyrics repeat way too much, just like Old Head has already said many times. Um, but like you get frantic. I mean, like that riff right away, you're in. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't care. Like, and you know what? Just screw anyone that says like the drums sound bad. Like I don't care. They sound good to me. I like that sound. Because it sounds like it's not necessarily like garage band quality, but it has a rawness to it that I like. Like
It
where
fits the
it
album to
sounds
me.
like they're just literally like just jamming in a garage or something. Like I don't know, like that's the best way I could describe it. But Death Magnetic really like it's so like even today I was like, am I gonna dethrone Saint Anger? I don't know, but I had to just go for this because it's like I remember when Ryan was first showing me the album, like back whenever you know were kind of like you had discovered it or whatever. And I'm not saying that even back then I was sitting there like, no, actually this is good. I don't know why you're saying this, but I was surprised that this was even Metallica. I was like, this is really heavy, like, and
Well, I mean, because I was like, because I had never. That was the moment when I was first had listened all the way through, and was like, I've got to show Trav this because Trav totally has not heard this. Like,
yeah,
because you hear like the heavy hitters, you've heard Black Album already, but Saint Anger is just one that's just like like swept under the rug. It seems
right,
like
yeah.
for sure, like in
And,
comparison to
and
the
like
rest.
when you showed it to me, like I remembered the album art. I was like, I don't think I ever even knew what the like Red Fist art was even from because obviously it doesn't even have text. So like
Yeah.
I just unless there's versions of the album where it does, I don't know. But yeah, it just and after watching that documentary, it just kind of like I love that they played the songs throughout it. And stuff like that. And I just like it's just like it's an example of what I'm gonna go for. Like I'm gonna go for like just like I said, like get you hyped workout track versus like just like albums that have like soft songs sprinkled in that are good, but it takes me like to do a ranking to like stick around for the soft tracks. It just happens. Like I don't know
Mhm.
because like in my whole rules of the ranking, like what's skippable, what's not, and maybe there's a couple skippable stuff with Saint Anger because you get to about halfway through the song, and you're like, all right, I've already heard it, so like just like you know, but I just I just think they kill it with like just the heavy riffs and the bass on the album is just I love it. I love it. It sounds so raw. And I made a note.
Mhm.
Let me go to my notes real quick. Saint Anger is if Metallica started in the early 2000s. So it sounds like if Metallica literally started in like 2000 or something and it was their first album. It sounds like a first album sort of quality. That's what it
Yeah.
reminds me of or whatever.
And
So,
and that's kind of what they were going for. Like
right.
starting over, taking everything down to the bare essentials of what they were trying to do. So I mean, yeah, I love that it's your number one.
Yeah, and it really fought, but I had to do it. Like I listened back through it multiple times and was like, man, is anything going to dethrone this? And I just don't think so because, like I said earlier, what am I going to throw on if I'm listening to this band? And honestly, it'd probably be Saint Anger, just because
Yeah.
maybe you're doing some cleaning around the house or something, and you want to get into the, you want to you just throw on Saint Anger. I don't know, like it like versus everything else that is just kind of you know I don't know, just different. The
Like
riffs are so different than they've ever been in that one. So
Mhm.
like Phil, it's Phil's favorite Metallica, which tracks like just Phil's one of our other best friends, and he loves like if a band has an album like that, that's what he's gonna like. Like
yeah,
it just makes sense for
but I do realize like Death Magnetic production wise is the better album. Like I'm aware of this, but like when it comes to I guess the patterns or whatever you want to call it, like the riffs versus those riffs or whatever. I like the sound of Saint Anger better.
And
Yeah.
well, what's interesting is like, I mean, to me, Saint Anger is well produced.
Yeah.
Like, for what it is, it's strange. It's
It's
really just a
purposely
one of
made
a
to
kind
sound that
album.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like it's
yeah,
not like it accidentally became that album. It purposely sounds that way.
yeah,
So,
Right.
but
yeah, I mean the songs are too long. Like it's like, you know, I can't say that I could probably actually, I mean, I did sit through the whole thing. I made sure to like just like punish yourself, sit through this whole thing, you know, like, but there are times where it's like maybe on a re-listen I'm like, okay, I get the point of that song, move on. And like I was just humming like Sweet Amber earlier. I think that was what, and like that's just like those riffs, man, are just like they hit it, they stop, and then it's like just, yeah, I don't know. It's very bouncy. Like a lot of the album has like the bouncy riff sort of. So I like that. I'm always gonna gravitate more towards that. I don't know why, but I just
cool. All right. Well, my number one is not only my number one Metallica album; it's my number one album ever made by anybody, and that's "Ride the Lightning." At this point, it's really hard to actually explain because there's many reasons why I love the album. Probably the easiest one to explain is I appreciate the sort of middle ground between the more epic stuff that they were going to be doing and a little bit of the rawness from this first album is still there. But also, there's some shorter songs which harken a little bit to the Black Album, where there's, and to me, that I just love the vibe of this album. I love the way that it sounds. I love the artwork. It's like my favorite album cover ever. And it just really has that, because, like, you know, Kill 'Em All's like young band full of piss and vinegar, finding their footing and, like, you know, just fucking hauling ass down the road, getting their shit out. Whereas Ride the Lightning really feels like a band that is fully formed who they are and absolutely know what they're going for and are just nailing everything. And yeah, the whole vibe of the album, all the songs, everything about it to me is just perfect. And I think maybe because I do believe it is a bit shorter than Kill 'Em All, and that might be a thing too because I actually love shorter albums, which is weird because most of Metallica's albums are pretty damn long. But I just love the fact that this is this little package of eight songs. No song sounds like the other song, and there's so much energy and so much, like, you can tell that there's a momentum to this band, and I feel it every time I listen to it, and I love it. It's just it never gets old for me.
I feel like this is Ride the Lightning is the album. Of course, I haven't watched reactions to like all their albums from anyone, but occasionally like a Ride the Lightning reaction will be suggested to me, and that's probably my favorite out of all Metallica albums to watch people react to, just because of it being like their number two, and like just there's a specific vibe and sound that they captured back then that I love.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be higher for me. I wanted it to be higher just because it's so, you know, iconic.
I mean, we all have different experiences with music, and it's cool. It's cool that we came at it from three different angles, and I like it.
Yeah, and to me, it makes sense that, I don't know, it just makes sense that Trav would put Saint Anger first. I don't know, it just makes perfect sense.
And like I said, I could wake up tomorrow, listen to that and Death Magnetic.
2000s metal, and
yeah,
that's technically what it is, I guess. And then I love 80s music and 80s metal to an extent, so I guess that makes sense for my number one. So I don't know.
Sweet.
I think Ryan predicted that, though. I think because I was wondering, because Death Magnetic almost beat it, so I'm like, is it going to be predictable or is it not? I think like, but like I already,
when we got to number 5 and you hadn't said it, I was like, yep.
Like, here we go. Yeah. And I mean, and like, just all of this could change. Like, I could listen to them again and like it all just be. Almost get because this list has been this way for a while. And so I could listen to it all again today, and it'd all be like, well, that video didn't mean anything. But most of it, like the top three, it was like, this is pretty cement, but it could change. Like, and I think that's the beauty of music in general, is that that'll just happen. It'll always happen. It'll probably happen with my favorite band whenever me and Ryan get to that. So it's, so.
I mean, honestly, your top two to me are the top two most underrated Metallica albums. So I like that they're there. So
it was definitely interesting. I did not expect, because I was predicting going into it. I had heard some saying Anger. I was like, it'll probably just be like near the bottom or whatever. And then I was like, wait a second, why is this going up? So it just,
Nice. But what's interesting is like, because Old Head did a video. You did a video. I forgot what that's. Where you did unload, where it was load and reload, but you cut it down.
Yes.
I forgot. It wasn't cranked and ranked, but it was a different title.
That's slashed and mashed.
Slashed and mashed. Maybe if it was my version of what I would do for load and reload, maybe if it was like a bigger album cut down, that whatever that would probably be my favorite Metallica album. Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's how close kind of the top few are, if that were to have happened, I think. Because I love that sound. I mean, that's might be their best production. I don't know. Maybe.
It's great.
It's extremely really good production.
I just think a lot of what I took from Metallica, just when it comes to like what I learned from them, listening to all of them, is just like the biggest negative I think I have with the band is just like sometimes a lot of songs on one album, like at the same time, like just sound the same. And that's like, and not necessarily, that's not always a bad thing, but in this case, it was like, how many times, James, are you going to write this riff? Like, just like, I don't know, just sometimes. So, but then my positive being like all these surprises, all these songs I hadn't heard before. And, so I don't know. Like,
this made me more of a fan than ever.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of.
Before this video, I would never have said, "Yep, Master of Puppets, one of my favorite albums of all time." I probably wouldn't have said that if I didn't do as big of a like deep dive and really took this like serious. And for however long we planned it, it was forever. But
right, we did it, guys.
Yeah. I'm glad we finally did it. I love talking Metallica, so shit, it's easy for me.
Right.
Yeah, we did it.
We did
it. That's what you gotta watch. You gotta watch the bonus disc of Some Kind of Monster, where you get to watch them make that song, and it is.
Oh
it
no!
Is great. It is great. Anyway.
I haven't told Trav about that.
So Trav, that's a song on Swizz Beatz. Swizz Beatz did a collaboration album with all these different artists back in the early 2000s, and he did a track with Metallica that has Ja Rule rapping on it, and it's bizarre.
It's weird,
but also awesome.
Like it. Right.
It's but people fucking hate it, but it is one of those things that I unapologetically get pumped every fucking time I hear it. So it's worked its way into being the way that on Cranked and Ranked we celebrate ending a ranking. We all yell part of the song, which is, yeah, we did it!
Well, yeah, I gotta check out all this stuff if I'm not burnt out. Right. I've actually
give yourself a few weeks.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's kind of like I haven't listened to it because this list has been this way for a while, and then like I've given it space, and it was kind of the last couple of days that I was like diving kind of back in to make completely sure that nothing's changed. Yeah. But I will say, like, just shout out to Metallica in general for like still going and like just being unapologetically themselves. Like I remember some post, I think of a recent show or something, and Old Head probably knows more about it, but James is like sitting backstage or something, and he's like saying his prayer or whatever before show, and he has like a cigar or something. There's just something like their whole vibe, what you capture, like I don't know, it's like they've changed with everything they've been through, and Some Kind of Monster was kind of like an example of like, look, like they're people too that have issues, and James kind of did a 180 even by the end of that movie. Maybe I don't know how much for real, but you know, it's like they started so young, they grew up, and they're, you know, they may like have like lost them. I don't know how many members they've lost or whatever off the top of my head, but they're still killing it. I mean, like, and if anything, they can take their sound that they used to have and still have, whatever. And, you know, Old Head was saying like their live is, I believe it. I believe that their live would be incredible just because it's that sound, but live. So sometimes bands can come on to us, like they do a live show and it just sounds like the studio album, but I don't believe that for Metallica,
No.
And there's just nothing like that. So maybe one day I'll see them, but yeah. But, I mean, they're just iconic. They're responsible for a lot of things. I think they furthered like a lot of inspiration of metal bands today and stuff. Of course, it's a domino effect. A band inspired a band, inspired a band kind of thing. But Metallica, I mean, they've made a huge stamp. Like, rather me and Ryan are like, oh, like, you know, they're not like our favorite thing, but I understand like why they would be somebody's. And so, yeah, it makes sense.
Yep. Well said. Cool. All right. Well, this has been fun, gentlemen.
Yep.
Thanks for having me. I'm not like I'm the host. I'm wrapping it up.
Yeah, this has been our Metallica ranking with Old Head, me and Trav.
That none of you watching are going to agree with. None of you. None of you. Even if you probably didn't even make it past where I put Master of Puppets. So.
But y'all want to plug anything or
I was gonna just try to plug Old Head. Like I was gonna say, you know, there'll be a link in the description for his channel. Go watch him if you like Metallica. If you like him and his friend, I forgot his name. Sorry. Like do
Eddie Sparks.
Eddie Sparks do album ranking, stuff like that. All kinds of great content. So go check him out. Go check him out. Go show him the love.
If you enjoyed hearing me ramble here, I do that. That's all I do on my channel is ramble. So
but hosting it.
So I host the rambling.
But yeah, guys, go show him some love. And anything else y'all want to say before we bounce?
Nope.
Okay, bye.
It's been a blast, guys.